Start. Okay, fantastic. Okay, great. So let's get started then. So good afternoon. And once again, I'm really thrilled to be with you today to kind of, I guess, as we continue to look at the importance of purpose-driven leadership and particularly how value-driven leadership boosts financial and operational success. I just think it's really important. But right from the get-go, I think it's really important just to really stress something. So here I go. Okay. Ethical leadership isn't just a moral imperative, it's a business advantage. So ethical leadership is not just something that we do that's right, it can actually be a competitive advantage. So just let that one thing sink in for a little bit. So organizations led by value-driven leaders not only gain trust and loyalty, but they also achieve stronger financial and operational outcomes. So today, what I want to do is I want to explore the tangible benefits of ethical leadership and how it can positively impact your bottom line. So that's what we want to cover today. But first things first, our mission is to create a welcoming space where leaders are empowered to align their faith, their values, and their ethics with their leadership. And through this alignment, we help leaders to increase their impact authentically and achieve business success with integrity across whatever sphere of influence they're in or whatever industry they operate from. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm going to come back to that. It's really great. So Ben Francis, I love that. It's grown from business unicorn status from kind of being unique to very humble beginnings. So this is fantastic. Supporting local. I'm going to go and look him up. But that's really good. I like that. That's brilliant. So we aim to help business leaders wherever they are to do things and do that well. So today, we're going to be looking into the business case for ethical leadership. So my question is there really one? So is there a business case really? And then I'd like to share some examples of organizations that are thriving through value-driven leadership. We're going to look through a quick interactive activity to help you to analyze how ethical practices can actually improve outcomes. And then I'm going to share how you can take your next step in your leadership with a personal leadership impact and influence audit. And then some really exciting news, how you can be among one of the first groups of people to join our brand new Faith Inspired Leadership Lab membership group. So that's going to be fantastic. Okay, so for those who don't know me, I'm a leadership development coach who's dedicated to helping faith-driven leaders to align their talents, their values, and their spiritual gifts so that they can create phenomenal business success through faith-inspired leadership. So that's what I'm about. So do stick around to the end because we do have a super duper offer for you for those of you who are pioneers and are ready to be part of a new movement of ethical leaders in business. So let's go. See you next. Okay, so for those of you who have maybe attended a weekly moment session before, you'll know that I like to share kind of research statistics to help give some context for our discussions. So here's a few statistics for you. So according to the I can never say this word, Ethisphere Institute, ethical companies outperform the market by some 5.5%, and they do this annually. And in research from the University of Notre Dame, that they show that organizations with high trust levels experience 50% higher employee productivity over their counterparts. And then there was a study by Deloitte that reveals that 86% of the millennials, or Generation Y, that's easier to say, they believe that the success of a business should be measured in terms more than just financial performance. So they're looking at other key indicators that prove organizational success, not just a financial one. Now, just to add a little bit more context to the millennials, that they tend to, in this day and age, they tend to be in their late 20s, kind of early 40s. And it's that group of people who are projected to make up the majority of the workforce when it comes to that 2029. So they're going to be in the majority. So I think that's just added food for thought. If they're the majority of the workforce and they're saying that organisational success is more than just financial performance, I think that's something that we need to take note of. So many leaders worry that making ethical choices may slow business growth or negatively impact revenue. I don't know what you think about that, but that's a lot of leaders worry about that. But as we can kind of see, research suggests the absolute opposite. So it's about how do we get that message out there? See, ethical organizations consistently outperform competitors. But the question is why? Why does that happen? And I believe it's because trust, loyalty, and innovation drive sustainable business success. So, trust, loyalty, and innovation drive sustainable success. So, when it comes to making the business case for ethical leadership, there are a few points I think it's worth considering. So, number one, in terms of building trust and loyalty, ethical leadership fosters trust amongst its employees or staff, customers, and also stakeholders, which leads to stronger relationships and increased loyalty, which has got to be good for in anybody's business. And just as an example, then, I think it would stand to reason that when an organisation demonstrates fairness, employee retention improves, and then the knock-on effect of that is that there will be savings in overall recruitment costs, but also there'll be other savings in the business as well. And then when it comes to the second one, which is about driving innovation, a culture of ethics and trusts creates a psychological safety, psychological safety. And this kind of safety net actually encourages staff, employees to contribute their innovative ideas. Now, there's lots of research that suggests that the people who know where the next best innovation is coming from is the people who are working and hands-on. They see the issues, they know what tweaks need to happen. So if we can make it safe for those people to actually give of their best, to know that what's going to happen with their ideas, and know that they're going to be rewarded or perhaps even allowed to work on the things that they bring forward, that's going to create more of an energy for people giving of their best and bringing their best ideas into our organisations. And then if we look at in terms of protecting and enhancing reputation, the fact is ethical missteps are costly. Okay, it costs money, whether that's financially and or reputationally. So those companies that have a strong ethical foundation, they're able to avoid any pitfalls that come with that. Okay. And I like talking about Patagonia UK, and I did a bit more research on them today. But its environmental values attracts loyal customers and allows them to actually charge premium prices for their goods and services. So when I looked into what their actual values were, I looked at the environmental ones first. And so and I'm just going to read what they put. Their whole idea is about protecting our home planet. So their take is that we're all part of nature, and every decision we make is in the context of environmental crisis, that is in the context of the environmental crisis that's challenging our humanity. So their whole idea is to work to reduce their impact. They share their solutions. They embrace regenerative practices. They partner with grassroots organisations and frontline communities to restore land, air, and waters to a state of health. They also kind of trying to address their addiction to fossil fuels, and they address the deep connections between environmental destruction and social injustice. I mean, when I read all this stuff, I'm just like, for real? And then, if you look further, they've got similar values with regards to quality, integrity, justice. And the one I like is also by not being bound by convention. So I just think this is really powerful stuff, and all of which positively impacts their bottom line. So I just think that's kind of really interesting. And then finally, when it comes to improving financial outcomes, Companies with a clear ethical framework perform better in the long run. So I'm not talking about those short-term gains. I'm talking about having sight or foresight for the future and working for the long term. And that makes a huge difference. So finally, another interesting statistic. So according to the stock performance of the world's most ethical companies, they consistently outpace their peers. So this is like big, stock market organizations of the most ethical companies outpace their peers. So for me, when we take these four elements, when they're all clear and when they're consistently communicated, they provide a powerful compass for decision making and team engagement. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Does that kind of make sense in terms of the things that happen as a result of ethical practices? Okay, so just a little bit more, because I do like this, just to give a bit more kind of real world examples. It's not just Patagonia. There are quite a few companies like this. So we've got Patagonia talking about Gymshark as well. So there are companies out there doing great things. So we look at Ben and Jerry's. So not just great ice cream, okay, but their mission is to create economic opportunities, which aligns with their business strategy. And in doing so, when they do this, they attract socially conscious consumers and they attract the best talent. And I looked at their kind of mission statements, and their product mission drives them to make, distribute, and sell the finest quality ice cream. And I like this bit, and euphoric concoctions. Okay. So we look at them like, we think about us, I could do with a tub right now. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, they do this by incorporating wholesome, natural ingredients, promoting business practices that respect the earth and the environment. Their economic mission is to operate the company on a sustainable financial basis of profitable growth, which increases value for their stakeholders. And they want to expand opportunities for the development and career growth for their staff. And then finally, I looked at their social mission, which compels them to use the company in innovative ways to make the world a better place. So when I looked at all of that, I just thought, that's pretty amazing. So they're not just doing ethical stuff just to be nice. They actually do it because it makes business sense and it increases their bottom line. I just thought that was really good. But the way that they were doing it, they also want to make the world a better place. Then it was Costco. So I want you to think about these examples, because I'm going to come back and ask you your thoughts on them. So there's Costco, and they prioritize treating employees well, fostering a positive work environment, and providing opportunities for growth and development as well. And they maintain a strong ethical culture, and this is demonstrated by their tax strategy and their commitment to social responsibility. So you can have really great focus on business, but also do great things. And by treating their employees well and offering fair wages, Costco experiences lower turnover rates and higher productivity, which directly impacts its profitability and does that in a positive way. And then finally, Johnson& Johnson, and this is one of my favourite case studies, so I do talk about this one a lot, but they had the whole Tylenol crisis. But by prioritising public safety over profits, they actually set a precedent for ethical crisis management, and this was instrumental to the way that they managed the crisis for themselves. So during the Tylenol crisis, they maintained open lines of communication with the public and authorities, demonstrating transparency and also building trust. And then at the end of the crisis, they introduced tamper resistance packaging. And they actually set a new standard for the pharmaceutical industry, demonstrating that they had a commitment to innovation, but doing it for safety. So their decision to prioritise customer safety over profit during the crisis demonstrated trust and long-term brand loyalty. Okay, so that's my blurb. Okay, so tell me then, by putting some, your comments in the chat, what stands out most for you about these examples? What stands out most for you about these examples? So that's the first thing. And I can share my stuff, but I just want to hear what stands out most for you from these examples. So one of the things, I guess, for me was, everything that the people are doing, there was twofold. There was still a focus on growing the organization, being profitable and rewarding shareholders, but there was also balance with doing really good stuff as well. So that was one thing that stood out for me. So what stands out for you, if anything? If anything. And I'll just wait and then I'll move on. So what stands out for you? Okay, that's definitely one. So treating employees well. I think that came across all of them as well. So treating employees well, but also the fact that they were not just treating them well, but they're actually paying them good money as well as treating them well. I think that is the same thing. So there's a bottom line impact on that in terms of more going out of their bottom line. But at the same time, that was kind of balanced with, increased productivity. So I think that's a great point. A great point. Okay. So this is where you need to think a little bit, okay? So if you thought you had coffee and you were having a break, you're now not. Okay, so this is where I want you to think a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to give us a bit of time just to explore how ethical leadership can directly benefit your organization. So to do this, we've got two contrasting scenarios for us to look at and then reflect on any actionable takeaways. So here goes. We've got two scenarios. So company A. A company is offered a profitable deal with a supplier known for unethical labour practices. Okay. The leadership kind of accepts this and prioritising kind of short-term revenue over value. So that's one scenario. The second scenario, B, is a competing company chooses to walk away from a similar deal. Instead investing in ethical sourcing. Now, while the costs up front are more, they actually gain public trust, customer loyalty, and attract socially conscious investors. So there's no right or wrong reason, but my question is, which leader would you prefer to work for and why? So it might not just be really obvious, but which leader would you prefer to work for and why? So leader A or leader B. So company A or company A. So which leader would you prefer and why? And I think, there are short-term and long-term impacts for each decision. So which one, A or B? So let me know that one. That would be great. And I'll tell you who I'd like to work for. But again, I was thinking about this as you write yours, and I was just thinking, on one hand, you could say it depends. If I've got lots of, costs going out my door, and I might kind of go, I would prefer to work for A because at least we're going to get some money straight in. And then maybe later on we could go back and think about how to do things right. So that could be one way that you could think. Or actually, it's kind of like, well, just do the right thing anyway. I prefer to, sleep at nighttime knowing that I'm working for somebody who does things in the right way. So I don't know what your thoughts are. A or B? What are your thoughts? And IBK, what are your thoughts? A or B? Let's see what you think. Okay, so similar to me, that, if you work for somebody, then you've got peace of mind that way. Okay, and again, if we're thinking about, seeing longer term benefits, working more ethical and sustainable ways, again, it's having that focus. And I think that's something that leaders are called to have, is to have a longer term focus about their business, not only looking at the short term. But let me ask it a different way. Are there any short term, or what are the short term or long term impacts of both A and B? So are there any, positive things out of A? We might not sleep as well, but are there some positive things in there? Or, what are the short and long term for B? So I don't know what your thoughts on that. So again, I think like I was saying, getting money in the door, short term, getting rid, being able to cover short term expenses, that might be a really important thing for a company, an organization at a point in time. But again, looking at the long term, those ethical practices may make things work better for the organization later on. But I guess, what are your thoughts on that? If you've got any thoughts on that, that'd be great to hear. And yeah, just be good to think about that. Okay, so cash injection might protect the business and cannot be completely ignored. Okay, because and that's what I'm saying, sometimes it might be about that. And it might be a way in which we can maybe take the first deal because it's money here now, but the way in which we approach and work with them, we might be able to change some of the practices. It might be an understanding that they do different things. So we could get into a negotiation. It might not just be about accepting those unethical practices because they probably want the business too. So I think thinking about it that way, there could be some negotiation to improve things short term and definitely longer term. Okay, so yeah, so that's definitely one. And then we've talked about, okay, B, being more ethical, people feeling happy. It just sounds like there's more space in that organizations to do things right. And just the whole culture seems one that uplifts rather than something else. So that's something to think about. And I guess the last question, which is a bit of a wider one, how do you think ethical leadership actually protects and enhances business success? Do you think there is anything in that? So how does that happen? How does ethical leadership protect and enhance business success? I guess it goes, one of the things that I would think of, and I'll wait to see what you've got, but one of the things that I think of is when I was talking about, that whole psychological um, contract and feeling safe. That's one thing that protects the business and protects staff because how you're treated well, what happens, there's more safety in not knowing that, your ideas, your thoughts are not going to be taken by somebody else and somebody else is going to get the benefit of them, but you're going to be rewarded for what you bring in. And I think scenario B for me sounds more like an organization like that, and ethical leadership protects the business long term when you operate with a culture like that. Yeah, and clearly, I do like that. Clearly, B has longer term benefits with employee loyalty, attraction of investment. So that's something as well to think about. Securing the future for the business, winning new customers who will trust their business from the start. I think that's, again, long term, that's got to be amazing, an amazing benefit. So that's fantastic. I love that. One last question, and this is not to put anybody on the spot, okay? Um, Not to put anybody on the spot, but just yes, no, I'll leave that one because you've shared that one. So okay, I'll leave that one. But again, if there's any, I just had to go there. I'm like, no, 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 be nice. Okay, so my question, I guess, is kind of any learnings, anything else that stands out for you, then please feel free to put those in place. So that's what I would kind of say. And then when I was thinking about it because a lot of the people within my community are faith-filled or faith-inspired leaders. And so this exercise actually reminds me of a scripture that comes from Romans 8:28. And it just says, and we know that all things work together for good for those who love God and those who are called according to his purpose. And for me, I just think that it just demonstrates how ethical choices, even when challenging, can often lead to better outcomes for teams, customers, and the bottom line. So even if we just put that into there, just doing things right will often work out best in the end. So I just think that's an interesting one. So if you like that, then give me a thumbs up. Okay. Oh, somebody's joining us. So yeah, if you like that, then please put the thumbs up on that one. Okay. So let's just kind of move on a little bit. So I just want you to imagine for a moment. Thank you. I just want you to imagine for a moment. So you can close your eyes if you want to, but imagine leading with even greater confidence. Imagine knowing that your decisions inspire trust, that your decisions drive trust, they drive results, and they align with your core values. So you feel completely congruent with who you are as a leader. So just imagine what that would be like for a moment. So you might be that way already, but imagine doing that more. And so, my question to you then is, if today's conversation about values driven leadership and business success has piqued your attention even a little bit, then I'd like to invite you to take a deeper dive into your leadership style, the level of influence that you currently have, and how you can have greater impact by leading with clarity and purpose. So, I'd like to invite you to a complimentary leadership impact and influence audit. So we're going to just explore what that looks like. And in that kind of time, it's about 40 minutes, we analyze how your current leadership approach and how it aligns with your organization's values and purpose. We identify areas of growth to enhance your impact. And then we also help you to develop a strategy to strengthen your leadership capacity and lead with greater clarity and conviction. So if that's of interest, then please, use the QR code on the screen to book your 40-minute complimentary audit with me. And I often say, don't just imagine what leading with even greater confidence could be like. Take proactive steps now to become the leader who inspires, who motivates, and who drives lasting business success. So spaces are limited, so use the QR code or the link that's going to go into the chat, and you can just secure a spot now. And then if you do that, I do look forward to working with you to support you on your journey to lead with purpose, integrity, and with your values intact so that you can drive meaningful change in your organization. So the link to book should come up in the chat in a minute. Okay, so just as we kind of get ready to kind of wind down, so welcome to Beauty, welcome. So just as we get ready to wind down, let's just go through some of the key points to remember as a recap. Okay, there's the link to book in for the audit. Okay, fantastic. So ethical leadership strengthens trust, which drives loyalty, innovation, and productivity. Companies with value-driven leaders consistently outperform their competitors. And by integrating ethics into daily decisions, it actually protects and enhances your organization's long-term success. So just as we kind of come down, what are your thoughts on all of this? So if you've got any other thoughts about it, then please feel free just to drop them in the chat. Just your thoughts about it, your reflections, or any questions that you may have, just drop them in the chat. And then you can reach out to me in the private direct message, but just drop them in and we can just get a sense of where you're at. And then as we kind of come towards the end, I want to thank you for investing your time with me and today's session. So thank you very much. I want you to remember that ethical leadership isn't just good for business, it's good for the world. So I look forward to helping you make an even greater impact. So again, like I say, feel free to share your reflections in the chat, reach out to me directly. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's session, whether, what worked for you. And just before we wrap up, one of the biggest challenges for leaders committed to ethical leadership is finding a community that truly shares their values. So that's why I'm launching the Faith Inspired Leadership Lab membership group, which is a dedicated space full of resources, discussions, and real connections with like-minded people who are passionate about leading with integrity, purpose, and their faith. So there's still time to be part of the founding group, and access some special early bird benefits. Okay, so if you're interested, or you want to learn more, just drop a yes in the chat, or you can direct message me on LinkedIn. So I'll just keep you updated on where we are in terms of launch. So I like the scenarios. There's a lot of company, okay, there's a lot of company A's. Yeah, that's fantastic. I do, yeah. When I was writing them, I thought they're actually quite good, but we could talk of them forever. And I guess that's one of the things that we would do in our kind of membership group is we would come off, everybody would be on camera. We could have great discussions about this, and that's part of the space that I want to create. But anyway, there's also a worksheet that will accompany today's session. So we'll be emailing that out to you soon. So just look out for that. And like I said, I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes if you've got any further questions in the chat or we just want to chat. Otherwise, I'm going to look forward to speaking to those of you who've booked a complimentary session with me. So I look forward to speaking with you then. And so until next time, I'm going to say, stay blessed. Okay, so what I'm going to do, okay, no problem. I'm just going to stop the share and I'm going to come off. There's my recording button. Pause and stop the recording. There you go. Okay. And then I can, where's that bit? There's that thing. Where's that oh gosh. Oh, here we go.